Mhm. Okay. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Mary Fran Johnson, CEO of Mary Fran Johnson Media, and a contributing columnist on CIO.com, where I write about boardroom strategies for technology leaders. Twice a month, we produce this show, CIO Leadership Live, with the generous support of CIO.com and our friends in the CIO Executive Council. We're streaming live to you right now on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we very much welcome all of our viewers to join in this conversation today with questions of your own. We'll be watching for those and doing our best to pass them along to our esteemed guest, who today is Jamie Holcomb. He is the Chief Information Officer and Chief Privacy Officer of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Jamie joined the agency in early 2019, and he serves as the principal advisor to the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property. He also directs the USPTO's ongoing technology transformation work. Based in Alexandria, Virginia, the USPTO employs more than 13,000 people, many of them engineers, scientists, attorneys, analysts, and of course, IT specialists. And they're all dedicated to protecting U.S. intellectual property rights. The basic role of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has been the same for over 200 years, with its mission spelled out in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. Before his current role, Jamie was the vice president and general manager for Harris Caprock Critical Networks, a managed security services firm. He's also spent more than 20 years in commercial and government contracting markets and in various leadership roles in both large Fortune 500 companies as well as two startup technology firms. Jamie, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Mary Fran. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, yes, me too. We've known each other for a long time, and it is always a great and entertaining exchange of ideas. So let's start out with a few surprising facts that people may not realize about the USPTO, which on LinkedIn calls itself, the tagline is America's Innovation Agency. Tell us a little bit about what most of us probably don't know about the USPTO.
I love that tagline because the innovation comes in the applications. And what we need to do is be innovative inside the walls as well. Some of
Hmm.
the things you might not know about the USPTO or patents in general, the number one patent was signed by our first president, George Washington, for something called potash, which is actually fertilizer, and how apropos for our country to start out with the number one patent being fertilizer, an agricultural nation. So it's really great. And, there's a couple of other things. We're unique in the federal government in that we're an independent agency. And one of the things about our independence is we do not use one lick of taxpayer money. We are fee funded. And I always say to people, fees equal taxes. And I have a fiduciary to the fee payers, not necessarily the taxpayer. The fee
Hmm.
payers, patent applicants, trademark applicants, as well as the intellectual property community of lawyers and the whole industry involved with
Uh-huh.
protecting individual rights.
Interesting.
And I would say the third and final surprise is that when I walked in, I can't believe it. I've been in the government a long time. And the fact of the matter is, most of the time when you have 20, 25 years of tenure,
Hmm.
you retire or you do something else. My goodness, 35 and 40 years is the average here at the USPTO. And there's a reason. It's a great place and it's a great challenge. We are the engine of growth for America's economy, and we want to keep that moving forward.
Well, that's cool, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about that and some of the innovation engine activities you've been ramping up since you got there. It's almost 3 years now, right? February of 2019. Okay. All right, let's go up to, I'm very fond of an initial helicopter view question where we go up and talk about the impact and the challenges of this ongoing pandemic. You had some very interesting data that you shared when we talked earlier about how things in the beginning of the pandemic, the spike you saw in patent applications, for instance, how some of that has changed now. Tell us about that kind of interesting, that roller coaster data you've been assessing.
We were really surprised at first when the pandemic occurred because we did see that spike in patent applications.
Hmm.
Thinking, wow, people are stuck at home. Maybe they're putting all their great ideas down on paper and saying,
Yeah.
why not try to apply? So
Hmm.
that was great. However, we saw a drop in trademark applications and we're like, what's going on here? And it mostly was the fact, I think, that people were retrenching. Small businesses and other businesses weren't thinking that the trademarks were valuable in a pandemic.
Hmm.
And so what we've seen since is a total reversal of those applications. Now, I'm not going to say that patents has dived off. I am going to say that they're maintaining levels of like years, like prior years.
Okay.
Trademarks, my goodness, it has gone through the roof. And that, I believe, is due to the fact that people understand that in a pandemic, the online business is so valuable. And the way to differentiate yourself in a business sense is through your logos and your trademarks and your intellectual. So
Yeah.
we've seen a huge spike in trademarks, and we're trying to catch up on the backlog of that.
Well, and you'd mentioned too that that actually led to the creation of a position for a chief economist.
We did. We always had a chief economist, but now we really need that data analytics to
Hmm.
ensure that we knew what the data was telling us. We are a data-driven agency, and we don't make decisions on intuition. We make decisions on analytic and scientific fact. And I love that about this agency. We're not driven by bureaucracy. We're driven by productivity in quality and in time. One of the things that I'm trying to bring to the PTO is the entire commercial atmosphere of better, cheaper, and faster. It always seems the government is always trying to do better. That's never in question. But
Yeah.
the cheaper, faster part always become a little odd because, oh, we'll get that done no matter what. Well, it takes years. No, the problems of sunk cost and investments often come to fore in government work.
Okay.
This thing through no matter what. And yet you're throwing good money after bad. And
Mm.
so the idea of the sunk cost, look, yes, learn from your failures, but don't keep feeding a failure. Starve it. Only feed success. How do you know success without breaking a couple of eggs? You have to fail fast. And
Hmm.
that's what I've tried to bring in as well. Those commercial best practices into the
Yeah.
USPTO.
Well, good. Well, let's dive into that and talk a bit more. I know we mentioned that there were more than 13,000 people that are employed at the Patent and Trademark Office. Tell us about the size and scope of your IT organization and what kind of a, you've been there now almost 3 years, and I know just from our past history, you like to change things up a lot. So tell us what you've been up to in terms of the ongoing transformation that you're steering the agency through now.
Yeah, I think there's a huge cultural change, a shift within
Mhm.
the IT realm at the USPTO. And it's even occurring during the pandemic. No matter what, we've
Mhm.
continued our journey and path forward. We have 700 federal IT workers and about 1,600 contractors for
Mhm.
2,300 people that we have across 4 product lines.
Mhm.
They are trademarks, patents, back office business, and IT and infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, before I came on board, there were business units, and IT did a lot of projects. And there were over 150 projects that
Mhm.
had start and stop times. And it was a very herky jerky budget year. Got to start
Mhm.
up, got to do this, got to do that. And it wasn't really delivering the value that the business units wanted.
Hmm.
So I came in and we created a product management. I got rid of the project management office and created the actual delivery office.
Okay.
And it's not just a change of name, it's a change of attitude and philosophy. Instead of projects, we now have products.
Mm-hmm.
So I said there were 4 product lines. We have about 30 products, about 7 per product line. An example of a product is patent search. And in that patent search team, they do all the applications that are necessary to find whether or not a patent application is unique and novel. And so there's a lot of work being done.
Mm-hmm.
Every product is owned by a product owner from the business, not from IT. Of course, the IT person, architect, software engineer is right beside that business owner, but the business owner is making the decisions based on its advice from the IT architect. And then you have the whole team of developers and testers and quality assurance and security in the agile DevSecOps model. It's not so good just doing agile, right? That's a checklist. We need to be agile. And so we're trying to influence the product teams to come in and become agile through scale.
Yeah.
We had a lot of great success in the early times, and that's what it takes to get a cultural shift moving is those small wins.
Yeah.
Once those small wins occurred, now we have to go through the really hard work of scaling success. And there's been a lot of bumps along the way, but that culture of those people and how we're doing business for the business units is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things is mission accomplishment. A lot of times people don't realize their efforts and how they contribute to the actual mission. What do? We award patents and we register trademarks, period. And if you can't figure out how your IT job fits into that mission, then we have to have a discussion because you're superfluous. You're not really doing your job. So one of the things I did was I handed out in the military fashion the USPTO coins. And in the coins, the things I say is mission first.
All right.
And so that mission first, everybody's like, yeah, how do I get that thing done? How do I get the award of a patent? How do I get the registered trademark? Doing it better, cheaper, and faster.
So I'm a network engineer and I've been working at the USPTO for, say, the last 10 years. My workday now is very different. I'm working on these agile teams. I know more of the people on the business side. What's some of the reality on the ground like for some of your IT specialists?
I love it because everybody has a perspective and you have to realize each other's perspective and put each other in each other's shoes to best understand how to tackle the problem. And it's not just one range and another. There's a whole 360 of this. And I love it as a network engineer during his product days would go, and I've heard this actually at the line level. They just understand. It's hard to do what they just asked me to do.
Yeah.
They don't know all the technology involved and what they're asking. And one of the things that I've always come back and said is, isn't it good to know that they don't understand? And now you have to explain it to them in business terms to the point where your grandmother can understand what you're doing. And just explaining it to your grandmother what you do for a living, take that same attitude and put it to the business owner. Say, okay, look, in order for you to get this, I need to ensure that we have internet connectivity that routes very efficiently and has the bandwidth needed for the large transactions that are going on. What's happening is your applications are coming in and they're getting larger and larger every day, requiring all sorts of digital certification as well as signature authority and ensuring the security of the cyber transactions back and forth. In your office actions alone, we have to ensure that those connections are secure so that you can be assured that you're talking to who you're talking to and that you're actually conducting work efficiently. And see, is the explanation from a network engineer on what they're trying to do. And great example about how everyone contributes to the bottom line. Whether you're a network engineer, a tester, quality assurance, cybersecurity, operations and maintenance, upgrading the Oracle, it doesn't matter. You have to be there in order for it all to work together.
Okay. Now let's talk about that. You'd mentioned that you've got 25, probably 30-year-old systems there. You had even mentioned there was some client server stuff in industrial production right now, but that the internet kind of sped by the Patent and Trademark Office front door, what did you say, at 100 miles an hour, and PTO never caught up. So, how do you balance those two big challenges as the CIO and the Chief Privacy Officer?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first part of resolution is admitting that you have a problem.
Yep, step one, right?
Yes, and I think that the fact that the PTO, the Patent and Trademark Office, could go so long and complete the mission without worrying about this internet thing, without worrying about a cloud, without worrying about anything, because it in and of itself has done a great job in pendency, in awarding patents, registering trademarks. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The bottom fell out. Huh? What happened was there was a large outage for about 11 days where the patent examiners and some trademark examiners could not actually do their work. Can you imagine 9,000 people waiting to do work and they can't do it for 11 days? That is crazy. It's not acceptable. And so resiliency part came in. The backups didn't work as expected. And it's mostly because no one ever said, guys, we need to maintain this. We need to check and make sure we're okay. We need to change the oil. It's the whole thing about 20 years, right? You can't keep using your old Ford F-150 if it can't hold the load. And it's been asking them bigger and bigger loads because everything outside of the PTO is moving at breakneck speed, doing all these brand new things. So now we have to introduce emerging technology and the things that we buy, along with solidifying and ensuring that your operations are solid. So the first thing we did was we had to invest in the core stability of what we had in that client server network.
Okay.
We did right before the pandemic. Talk about being lucky. Oh,
Thank
my goodness.
Huh. Yeah.
I would rather be that than, anyway, lucky is good. So what were you thinking?
Well, and you had mentioned those systems being down. A lot of it was because they were so integrated and coupled with one another, which that has, how the pendulum swings in our industry. And we go from all centralized to all decentralized to halfway back to, it's always moving that way. What are some of the ways you've used to build up or even shore up some of that resiliency? For instance, you probably have more than one ERP system to deal with, I'm guessing. Okay, so tell us
Very true.
What kind of things are you doing to bring those into the modern age? I know you have a term for the method you use on this. It's rather entertaining.
Yes, I'll get to that. So maybe I'm keeping people in suspense, but the fact there is no right answer. Centralized, decentralized, there's only an optimal answer. And I do think that most people have realized that the ERP of 10, 15 years ago has resulted in an entanglement or a tightly coupled operation such that if one thing goes down, there's a domino effect and it affects all the others. And that tight integration is not so good when you're talking about continuity of operations.
Right.
So because of that, what we're doing is we're decoupling that system that failed for 11 days. It is nasty tangling of all these different systems. Does it work? Yeah, it works really well. But when one goes down, like dominoes, the others fall.
Okay.
So what we're doing is a stranglehold method. And we're trying to put our arms around this big beast. Yeah. And then through a stack from the bottom to the top, we'll stave off a part of it and let that part act independently from what prior to was the ERP. Once that stack is able to independently, we could create a microservice on that side.
Right.
And we're able to pull apart the different entanglements. Easier said than done, especially when you're talking about 20-year-old client server architecture. Right. However, we're approaching it with gusto, and it is a big challenge. And I love the fact that it's DevSecOps. And if you're developing it, you have to operate it. It's no longer throwing it over the wall.
Right.
Oh, I don't care. It worked when I had it. No, it's everybody together. You're operating this thing for as long as you're maintaining, whatever you design, you're going to operate. You're left with it. So that also provides the ability to operate 24/7 without touching it, because the developers don't want to get back to operations. They want to make sure the thing works without them.
Yeah. Did you, in the way you were approaching this as you came in early 2019, did you reorganize the groups, or are they still, because I remember it used to be, like build, run, and operate used to be the classic 3 ways IT organizations would run. How would you describe the way you've reorganized the Patent and Trademark Office?
So maybe the most proud thing we've done, or accomplished, is the new term called people to teams. Okay. And I started out 2 years ago now, and I said, wouldn't it be great if you could just walk in, raise your hand, and say, I have these skills. I want to be on that team over there, because that's what I'm really interested in doing. Okay. And that was the challenge that I gave to my HR folks. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, they have come to fore. We have now a people to teams concept where we're not going to dissect or tear apart the old HR systems for general service, government services workers. All right. The GS is going to stay there. HR org is going to stay like it is. But the commercial practice of matrix management is what we're introducing. Mm-hmm. So people teams, although HR wise, you're assigned to the development staff. Mm-hmm. In daily detail, you're detailed into a team where your job is to develop that. And so you have these different organizations where the HR and your development leader, he now becomes the recruiter to make sure that you have the credentials and the right attitude for the team. He becomes much more of a HR person trying to make sure he's filling the right teams with the right people for the right mission. And it really is great, because that's how the HR side, that triangle, is taking care of the business. Meanwhile, the business is delivering on the products, the better, cheaper, and faster. So it's really worked out well, and we're doing great. We're making great strides in better, cheaper, and faster.
Okay. Well, and you had mentioned too that when we were talking about infrastructure, that there was a lot of serendipity. You went out and got a lot more bandwidth than you needed right around January 2020, right before the world changed, a month or two later. Tell us about the existing infrastructure now and where you're headed with it.
Thanks for bringing that up. I got to say that I was so impressed with some of the government services. What do I mean? Everyone thinks that, the commercial world most likely will be able to provide it better than any government could. Mm-hmm. And government agency. And I'm telling you, no, there are certain things that the government does that's phenomenal. One of them, of course, is delivering weather data to where it's needed to run the models to influence people and say, you better watch out, take cover now, because this tornado is coming over, the hurricane's coming, prepare, and so forth. That is all done by the National Oceanic Administrative Agency. Mm-hmm. So NOAA has created a great system called Enwave. And the Enwave uses the old dark fiber in I-2, the dark fiber that connects all the universities. Mm-hmm. And it lit up that dark fiber, and it operates it for the satellite shots in order to get that massive amount of data to the weather stations and to crank the data down on the ground so that it can get it to the right people. Well, they've also created a service that they're offering to other government agencies where we can use that unused bandwidth. And I take full advantage of that. I have 4 times the bandwidth at 1/3 the cost. How do you beat that?
It's pretty hard to, yeah.
Where it's at.
Yep.
And that's just the infrastructure, right? There's so many more infrastructure out there. And as an example, we need to ensure that we're using the commercial side as best we can. We are a big AWS shop, but we're also going to be using GCP, Google Cloud Platform. We want types of applications, if they're able, to be moved out into the cloud so that we don't have to keep reinvesting in the infrastructure. That's a commercial use of our fees. And remember, I don't use taxes, I use fees. And I have a fiduciary to ensure that I get better, cheaper, and faster for those fee payers.
Okay. And it sounds like the work that you've been doing, I mean, you're having tremendous results. It sounds like it would also take a tremendous amount of budget support. Tell us, what can you tell us about the budget you're working with? And I assume they didn't just give you an open checkbook and say, have at it, Jamie.
Not at all. In fact, it was, how can you keep this on par and improve?
Okay.
And that is a tough road to hoe in the government, because in order to get out of a mess, normally you need investment. So what we've decided to do is not only move to those product teams, but then hold the product teams accountable for what the priorities are. All right. Then you produce your prioritized list and you budget out the year. I apologize. I don't want to say that, government budgeting is bad, but it doesn't work for me. All right. I'll just say from my viewpoint, because if anybody thinks that they can figure out what's going to happen 3 or 5 years in the future, I don't believe they're telling the truth.
Okay.
So trade on the first year out, and we'll do our epics. We'll do our priorities based on what we can do each quarter. Now, if you can save any amount of dollars through operations and maintenance, through somehow, not cost avoidance, but you show me based on your budget outline that you saved this amount of money doing these type of things, the next year I will give you that savings in investment.
Okay.
And what you can do is you can invest back into it and even create more opportunity. So that's maximum allowable. I called it the closet theory, where if I'm giving you a big closet, you're going to fill it. If I give you a small closet, yeah, you're going to fill it, but obviously not that much can fit in, and only things that matter are going to fit in. Oh, and by the way, you're going to have to adapt and adjust. Why is that? Well, we just had a change of administration. There are a lot of things that change as far as priorities.
Of course.
In order to have an adaptive and flexible system, you have to be able to change those priorities that you're delivering in time, on the spot.
Yeah.
One of the great things about the commercial world is everything is done quarter by quarter.
Yeah.
And if you can't show me progress within 30, 60, or 90 days, I know you don't know what you're doing. So if you fail in 90 days, that's great, because it's a fast fail. Do something different. And if you succeed, we'll keep on feeding that success every quarter. So you get more and more success. So that's how we're doing the budgeting. We're saving and we're trying to invest at the same time.
Yeah. How have some of those, now you've got me intrigued, what has changed under the Biden administration for the USPTO in terms of priorities? Anything significant you can share with us?
Yes. Oh, I can't wait it goes to your budgeting question. So our budgeting in the January and February timeframe of 2021, and that was to submit for FY22, of course, right? You got to be prepared. Everything was ready by May. We had our stuff straight. Everything was great. 12 May 2021, the president issues an executive order, cybersecurity. Well, you need to do this. I go around with my colleagues. I try to talk inside. I talk outside. We figure out what we really need to do to make this real. And we put together another adaptive budget to what we had already submitted. And so now we went through the throes of, in the second quarter of this fiscal year, we'll start executing on those new goals. We're not going to change what we already decided to do in this quarter. 90 days. Keep going. Keep your head down. Keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. But as soon as January 1 comes, the cyber ethics have changed, and we need to adjust to that. So within 90 to 181 days, what we can do is adapt to those changes. I'll tell you another one. The administration has just nominated our next director and undersecretary of intellectual property. Her name is Kathy Vidal. Now, we anticipate that Kathy will also have her own goals and objectives, and our system is now set up to adapt to those as soon as she lets us know what they are. So you have an adaptive, agile system. It's not just the process, it's actually being agile and trying to think of these new innovative ways.
Yeah. Well, and I want to talk a little bit more about that too, because you've thrown around Agile and then DevSecOps, and it's great when companies can get to that. But I think, as you pointed out, you can't just do that by fiat. There has to be a whole lot of training. You have to culturally be ready to do these things. Talk about some of the ways that you made that land with people and not crush them with a whole bunch of different expectations that they maybe couldn't meet to. How have you enabled that transition?
There's nothing that wins people over rather than winning. If you keep winning, you keep winning, right?
Yeah, everybody likes that. Yeah.
Yes. So you have to have small wins, and you have to prove at the line level that this can actually work. It can't just be an academic exercise. Oh yeah, these are those highfalutin ideas. No, you have to get down, roll up your sleeves, and show people how it works. Therefore, at ADO, the Agile Delivery Office, one of the greatest things that it's done for the organization is it provides dojo training sessions. What? Oh, come on, you're not doing martial arts. Knock it off. No, but we are teaching people how actually to do things as a team using DevSecOps and agility. So they go through a 2 to 3 month assignment where we're giving them real applications. They're just not the applications. All right. So if we do fail, it'll fail small and we're okay. But if it does succeed, then we'll keep on moving using that and scaling on that success. We've had over 100 dojos, and it's done very well throughout the organization to spread that cultural shift. I also give these things out as coins. They're poker chips. As you know, the federal government does not allow you to do a lot of marketing things. So out of my own pocket, I pay for these poker chips. They're not very expensive, but boy, you can get them out, and they are a reminder to do a cultural shift. And in that cultural shift, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to act now, be bold, and simplify.
Okay.
So ABCs, everything's done in 3: red, yellow, green, 1, 2, 3, have priorities, do those things. And I know it's sort of management by cliche, but it actually works. If you believe in it, it actually works.
Well, and that's great. And I know you have a really a good example to talk about, a function called the PTAB, which is unique to the U.S. Patent Trademark Office. What is that all about?
So the Patent Trials and Appeals Board is a place where patents, applications, award, and justification or appeal, when you're appealing, it's actually a U.S. federal court within the USPTO. What? Yes, we actually run U.S. courts. We run them for the Trials and Appeal Board as well as the Trademark Trials and Appeals Board. Yes, we have judges on our staff. Yes, we have attorneys on our staff who actually prosecute and do these trials and appeals. So what happened was the PTAB was using Excel spreadsheets and pretty much Microsoft SharePoint. Okay, nothing wrong with that. It's just very manual and very intensive for hours of work and pains on the eyes. Anybody who's done it knows what I'm talking about. It's hard to, this is that, and you're comparing data elements, you get weary. Humans are very wearyful. We have to sleep, have to eat. Just one of those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we did was we created the product teams, and we have a lead product owner now for the PTAB. And based on that, they can automate and do their own applications rather than having to go off of others. And so the whole DevSecOps came to the PTAB, and it was accepted with open arms because finally we're getting some traction here. We're not at the end of all the 150 projects that used to be. They're front and center because they're taking care of their own. And they have the technology leaders from CIO now. We gave them some great assets with developers and everything else, and they feel empowered to do the work that's required. And they've created a number of automated systems now that are helping their docket as well as their lawyers become much more efficient and effective, better, cheaper.
Okay, I know you've used that a lot. That actual phrase. It actually reminds me of Charles Duhigg's book, "Better, Cheaper, Faster," which I've been listening to lately. The When we talk about the top priorities that you have coming for the next year, and I know you get asked this a lot, yeah, in other interviews, and you reel off your top four: cybersecurity, cloud smart, resilience, and emerging technologies. Let's circle around cloud smart and tell us more about how you decide what you're moving to the cloud. I think I saw some reference that there were over 200 vital applications when you got there, and as we all know, you can't just shut things down. So, how many of those move to the cloud? And tell us. We'll talk more about all those big four, especially the emerging technologies. But let's circle around cloud smart right now. What does that mean to you as the CIO?
So that's a great question, and we'll get right to the applications. As you said, over 200, right? Well, wait a second. Get an inventory. You have to figure it out. So we had a discovery of what these applications really are and how what they really are based on criticality and function, right? Mission. We have 26 mission critical apps. So they were red. That's what we have to concentrate on. That's our core.
Yeah.
Then we have, I don't know, 80 to 100 that are yellow, and they need them, but you don't need them right away. And then, of course, we had green, which these are nice to have. We can get them elsewhere.
Okay.
All right. So there's the categories and priorities pretty much. Then we scored red, yellow, green. What does that mean? We took the ability to say, how easy is it to go to the cloud based on your current platform? Green, yellow, and red. Green means very little, if any. You could just push it out. Most of the newer applications that were developed in the last 5 years were able to go out into the cloud. And we went directly to AWS and used a lot of their new services. So there's a pilot out there. People are finding out. All these things are going on simultaneously. And that requires a lot of collaboration and transparency. People need to know what you're doing and what the results were in order for their work to say, hey, we need to follow that, or hey, I would never do that. All right. So that those things need collaboration and transparency. On the yellow side, when you score an application as yellow, you need to refactor it. It's not going to work in the cloud. And those are the really tough ones because they can go, but it takes a lot of work. And finally, you have the red ones, the score. You're never going to put Algol out on the web. It's always going to remain on-prem until you can get rid of the darn thing.
Yeah.
So because we had these red applications, what we decided to do was have another data center in Manassas. That would be our resiliency. And those things that we have to keep in, we'd keep in Alexandria and Manassas. Everything we have a target to push out to the cloud.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing right now.
Now, is this, and this obviously is part of a data center strategy. Do you have one huge, massive federal type data center, or is it the two, one in Alexandria and the other one in Manassas?
Well, I will say OMB loved us because we had the most consolidated data center in all of government. There was,
okay,
and it was located at Alexandria. All right, that's great. No, it's not. What happens if that blows up?
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I told you about the Palm incident and the fact that we were down for 11 days. Mostly because they couldn't bring it back up in our old facility back up in Boyers, Pennsylvania. So what we did was we tried to do it again and try to use Boyers, what existed, to actually run operations. When we found we couldn't do it, that's when we went on a search for a second alternative processing site. And that's what Manassas became. So now we have the hot where we can go Alexandria and or Manassas, and then out to the cloud with our applications and ensure that all those applications have a backup site as well. Because moving to the cloud, one of the criteria is you must have continuous operations, and it shouldn't be in the same physical site.
Right. Okay. Well, we got a question from our watching and waiting audience here, and I think they'd like to, it's what are they moving to the cloud? I think maybe a little more detail and an example of an application or two that is that got that green light on it to move to the cloud.
Well, the easiest one that comes to my mind is uspto.gov. Hey, it's our front end. We use
Okay.
it on-prem. And recently, only over this past summer, we pushed it out to the cloud, and there was trepidation. Fear was all over the world, but it worked. And the guys did a really great job. It's amazing what happens when you put your full faith and confidence behind them, as well as the resources. You can't just say, do it. You have to be there. You have to give them the time, the money, and the ability, the competence to get it done. I was so proud of the team because they got it done. So we pushed things like uspto.gov out there and in time.
Wow. Well, the amount of work you've been doing here has actually prompted another question about how long does it take to decommission an application? How do you see what those apps are connected to in order to ensure that there are not, we don't have a visitation of those, what was it, 9 days that it was down, or 11? It was 11 days.
11.
Yeah. All right. So what's your process there?
So unfortunately, the answer is it all depends upon the complexity of the application. We have one application, which is an event hub. And this event hub takes in all of the different points and tries to shoot out the messages to where it needs to go. That thing is so complex, we really need to take the time to understand how it, and we need to document that all. On the other hand, if we just have a reference source, we can put that table out someplace in a day and make sure it works and integrates right. It all depends upon the complexity. The thing is not to accept I don't know as an answer.
Okay.
The fact is you have to know exactly what your application does. And not just you. Oh, that's for the tech guys. No, it's also for the business guy. Does he have to understand the ins and outs of integration points and APIs? Heck no. But he does need to understand this product is dependent upon that product. That's, we need to get this from here. Our customers are not going to be able to see it if it goes down here. They need to understand the consequences of the technology, not the APIs.
Well, when you think of some of those decommissioned applications and things you were able to move maybe to microservices, does any one of them stand out as kind of the most audacious move, the most challenging move, and one when you were done, you were like, oh, I should probably retire. This was amazing that we got this done.
I will go back to when I first got on to the USPTO.
Okay.
I got there in February, and by the end of April, we had actually transitioned that bad application, the POM, from one platform to another that was more up to date and supportable.
Yeah.
But when we took it off the old one, nobody knew what, because they had never done it before. So everything was like this. Oh, I hope it doesn't blow up. And had a good plan. They told me it would take until July 4th instead of April. Well, wait a minute. You didn't include the weekends and the holidays, did you?
Oh.
And so people need to be taken out of their comfort zone, and they need to be challenged. And the team, I knew the team could do it because they're competent engineers. They're, you size up people within 30 or 60 days. You know what you got after that. Right?
Excuse me.
And I realized it's just the fact that they hadn't been challenged the right way. They might have been challenged a lot of other ways, like just follow and do what I'm telling you to. That never works, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is you got to let people grow and do what they want to do. And that's a problem with the government. A lot of times you have the authoritarian command and control. That work with small, short-term things in the military, but it definitely doesn't work in the corporate world. The people need to know why they're doing what they're doing and how they can help. Then it all just falls into place. It's amazing how easy it is once you've done your job as a leader to make sure people know why.
Good. Well, I often think that clear purpose and then genuine appreciation goes so far with employees and coworkers and business partners in almost any direction. It seems I feel like during the pandemic, especially, everyone has kind of rediscovered how important empathy and relationships are. And it's, CIOs these days are not afraid to talk about the soft skills. If anything, if anything, they want to talk about them more because they're so central to any kind of cultural change. I wanted to talk about another aspect of your cultural change there as you were pivoting from those 150 plus projects to the 30 business product focus. And you call it the new ways of working. Is that NWOW or just no? How do you pronounce that? NWOW?
NWOW.
NWOW, okay. And that this has been a real fuel for team innovation. Tell us more about that. And in a lot of ways, I mean, intellectual property being on the front lines of that, innovation is kind of your bread and butter, being in the intellectual property industry. So tell us about how you got NWOW going and what sort of, that people to teams, I know you mentioned that already, but some of the, I don't know, the hints and advice you have about how to make a strategy like that not only work, but really resonate with the people that you're asking to, engage in these new ways of working.
Exactly. It is a cliche, but it's a shorthand version for I get it, you're not getting it. So when you say, wait a second, you're doing that according to the old ways of working, it means you're not getting the new agility, DevSecOps, because all about the team and not about the person. The problem with many organizations is they sub-optimize at the staff delivery level. You have the best finance department. You have the best HR department. You have the best IT department. Who cares? What are you doing?
Yeah.
All those departments are there to support the mission. The only thing that those guys should be saying is, we got these patents amount out in less than 18 months. We got it for less than X amount of dollars. We put out we had a backlog of trademarks because, oh my gosh, everybody's doing this great work. Well, we got it out in our 4-month window and now it's going forward. Everybody needs to be behind that. So techniques that you use for NWOW is such that if it's a compliance issue, as an example, well, you can't do that because cybersecurity says this. That's the old ways of working. So what did cybersecurity staff do? They realized that the old compliance ways wouldn't hold true in the new ways of working. It is just too slow. So what do? My CISO, Don Watson, and I created something called the lightweight ATO. So instead of doing the full ATO, which takes a year, and instead of giving a conditional ATO where I don't know what it is, but I'll trust you, we're doing something instead of the 535 different checkboxes you need to check, we're doing 35 of the most material. And so you get an idea of it and you get a lightweight ATO. And therefore you can, with a little assurance, we can move forward on compliance. It doesn't have to be the full, but it's not nothing. That's being agile. Okay. And so people come to me, we have this whole cybersecurity problem in the federal government. We're not secure enough, and our suppliers are not secure enough. We're getting hit left and right. Yeah. So what we need to do is just like the FDA did with Project Warp Speed. You can't just accept the old compliance. It's going to take this long in clinical. No, it doesn't. Look what we have. We have the vaccine. We have it because we went against the old standards. We need to do the same thing in cybersecurity, not accept that it takes forever. Do lightweight ATOs, get better and get faster, get down to the nitty gritty of things getting done. And NWOW is a lightweight ATL. So that's just one example of many where you can break down the barriers of, you can't do that. That's not the way the federal government does it. Well, it's the way we're doing it now. And everybody has a say. I think we should do it this way. I think we should do it that way. Take that into account and figure out the better way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds like a very different team dynamic than you expect to be operating in. We keep saying federal agencies and federal government, but you're not taxpayer supported, you're supported by the fees. So it really, the agency's a bit of an oddball, isn't it, in the whole federal, in the federal universe of agencies and the things that they do. We've talked about cybersecurity, cloud smart, the resiliency aspects. Let's not forget to hit on emerging technologies, and that always connects into talent and how you recruit. And these days, how is that going? Is it any easier? Is it more difficult to get the kind of talent you need to work in some of these emerging technologies? Because you can't do the dojo training and all the updating if you don't have somebody leading those teams. So how are you doing that?
So the answer to that question is very carefully. Sorry. The fact of the matter is, I love what happened. Not only were we great before the pandemic about NWave, but right before the pandemic, we were able to recruit an emerging technologist from Facebook, of all places, who had patent bar at 23 years old. His name is Jerry Ma, and I will tell you, he's probably turning red right now because I'm calling him out, but he
sure are
phenom for emerging technology. He is an AI expert, and he's brought a certain panache to the position where, being as young as he is, he's experienced. It's like, well, this young man, he doesn't have no, he has a lot more experience than you do, and he's actually delivered things. So listen. Yeah. So it's experience that counts. It's the experience in your subject matter expertise that counts even more. And what he's able to do is explain to his grandmother, the business units, that here's how we're doing artificial intelligence. Here's how we're taking blockchain and maturing it from an immature way to deliver operations to a more maturing process. We can't bet the farm on blockchain because it's not mature enough. We're not going to bet the farm on artificial intelligence because it's not mature enough, but we will use it where it's apropos. We've had great results in the precision of classification using artificial intelligence and the algorithms. We've had even better results introducing new search algorithms to the core of our examiners, to the point where artificial intelligence is not meant to replace, it's meant to augment. So not only augment, it actually is customized to the individual examiner's personal preferences. And they store those preferences in a feedback loop that helps them get down to what we're calling the needle in the haystack.
Okay.
So the tech and that cultural shift is huge. You need to introduce it again in small wins such that you can scale on your successes.
Okay. Well, and that's quite a get to get a 23-year-old phenomenal talent from Facebook. But you'd mentioned that you also do a lot of recruiting from people that are interested they're in their second career wave, and they're in a kind of patriotic, wanting to give back sort of mode. Tell us a little bit about that.
I can't tell you enough about that. I will say people at the PTO, it's either their second career or they've always been here. Yeah. And one of the things about a second career and wanting that challenge is the patriotism involved. We are in competition with the world, and we take our duty seriously to get those patents to the intellectual property owners. I mean, we are separated from others by our ability to own our property. We own the intellectual assets that we have. So that patriotism and that challenge is taken by a lot of folks who've already done their service, military, policemen, firemen. If they have a cybersecurity background and they're looking for something else to do, it's a great place to retire from, because out on the front lines doing physical activity, you're using your mind. And it's a great place not only for veterans, but also for second timers. They've done a commercial job, they've gotten their retirement, getting bored. Hey, come work for the US government, patent office. Do you ever think of that? It's a great place to work. People stay here because it's challenging and the people are awesome. I got to tell you, I work with the finest people in all the world. And yeah, I'm proud and all that other stuff. I do. They're great.
Well, that's a certainly a wonderful testimonial, and I have a number of my brother-in-laws were in the USPO. They were postal inspectors, and I know that there are all kinds of two of them are retired now, but there's all kinds of ongoing benefits. That's certainly true. Let me see, as we are wrapping up here, Jamie, I feel like I can just sit back and let you interview yourself because you do a pretty good job of that. But I want you to talk a little bit about some of the ideas and the advice that you have found most valuable as a leader over the years. What has been, what is the leadership lesson you either keep learning yourself or you keep making sure you pass it on to someone else?
Yeah, there's a couple that I'd like to share with folks. The main being, be true to yourself. You have to be genuine in everything you do. And so a lot of times people will come with the dilemma that, your boss just asked you to do something that you're not willing to do. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're not willing to do it, then you don't belong there. Try to find another job because that's not what you should be doing. You should be doing things that you genuinely are interested in, because that leadership goes throughout everyone. People know someone who's not genuine, like right away. Now, I might have a flamboyant, energetic way about it, but deep down, I love America, period. Mm-hmm. And my career goes to show that. I don't have to prove that to anybody. I don't care. I know. So that genuine sincerity for the job is known. That's one as a leader. You got to be into it. Number two, it's not about you. So many leaders are, well, it's my way or the highway. Really? How people follow you on that one? I mean, the authoritative is good if you've earned their trust, because, you saying get down, get on the ground means you don't want them to die from bullets that are coming across, right? Yeah. The fact is you can't use authoritative leadership, but only in short-term circumstances. Again, people have to understand the why. So it's not about you, it's about the team. And so once you get that in your head, then you realize the third thing is you give the accolades whenever it works, and the success belongs to the team. The failures, they all belong to you. If you can't do that as a leader, you don't deserve the position. Again, this is not because of you, it's because of the team. Mm-hmm. But the failure is due to you, and you need to take that personally.
Well, and I think I believe, from having talked with so many CIOs like yourself over the years, that is often the trouble that we have trying to get CIOs, for instance, to apply to an awards program. So a lot of times they don't want to, it's all about the team. It's not about them. But I always have to point out, like with our CIO 100 Innovation Award, the way we get them to go through the work of filling out the application is to remind everybody that it's really for your team. It's an award for the company. It's not for you personally. I'll bet the USPTO is going to have something that you're applying for this year. Am I right?
Yes, I think so. The team's got to be known.
There you go. Absolutely. And I also want to pass along a comment. It wasn't a question so much as a comment from another CIO who was out there listening. He said, it's been a very valuable conversation. I love your passion for your work, Jamie. And I have to absolutely agree with that. It really has been such a pleasure having you here today. I do feel like I didn't have to do very much work. You could get on here and interview yourself and do an equally great job. But thank you for joining us today and being part of CIO Leadership Live. It's really been wonderful, the conversation, Jamie.
Mary Fran, I always love speaking to you. You know that it's professional or formal or even informal. I just enjoy and it's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, you're so very welcome. If you joined us late today, you can watch my the full episode later on here on LinkedIn and also on CIO.com and YouTube, where we are on the IDG Tech Talk channel. CIO Leadership Live is also available as an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Jamie Holcomb, even half as much as I did. He's always such a pleasure to check in with. And that you'll join me for the next episode of CIO Leadership Live, which will be on Wednesday, December 1st at noon Eastern again, when I will be joined by Sujan Torlapati, who is the CIO of Optiv Security. Thanks again for joining us today, and please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, IDG Tech Talk, where you can find all the previous episodes of CIO Leadership Live. I don't know if anybody's done this yet, but I've been talking up the idea of binge watching all 75 of my CIO interviews. I feel like anyone who did that would know so much about how to do a great job with one of the greatest jobs out there in technology. Thanks so much again, and stay well, and we'll see you here next time.